December the 12th, 2023. Guys, there's a tremendous amount of back and forth information coming out of Russia and Ukraine between the U.S. and NATO and everyone else involved in this. But for the first time, Russia has blinded the NATO satellites and aircraft for the first time. Guys, NATO, that means U.S. That's the main player. Kyivstar, out of service. Kiev has no picture of Russian movements. The infrastructure of Ukraine's largest mobile phone company was destroyed. The Russians blinded NATO satellites that provided information to the Ukrainian army while simultaneously launching the largest cyber attack to date, targeting Ukraine's mobile phone operator Kyivstar, as well as other Ukrainian companies and services. According to reports, the Russians have jammed the radars of NATO's aircraft scanning for Russian troop movement in the Azov and Black Sea regions. At the same time, the satellites of some companies have been blocked. We're talking about Star Wars. The Finnish ICEYE in August 2022 sold a satellite for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine, as well as the American Ursa space stations and Capella Space. The Russian Federation's actions have not yet affected the European Sentinel-1A and 1B and Cosmos SkyMed satellites, as they have been deployed in a higher orbit. The same sources speak of very powerful electronic countermeasures coming from the Krashika-4 electronic warfare systems from the territory of Crimea. Currently, the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine cannot collect satellite images along the LBS. Such a large-scale operation involving surveillance satellites in low Earth orbit is being carried out by the Russians for the first time. With the advent of winter, the Ukrainian armed forces temporarily lost a key tool used to track Russian troops. Now, this is the latest, but for the last few days, they've been coming in hot and heavy. And it's like NATO, the U.S., and the West are lost mentally in the fog of war when you hear some of the statements. Now, there's a video here. I'm not going to play it, but I will link to the article, and you can come and watch it. But it's talking about the Krashika, the Russia's new unrivaled electronic warfare system. Now, again, you've got satellite communications equipment here, ground communication units here, no telling what's inside of it. But if they can do that to Ukraine, they can do it to anyone. It says Ukraine's major cyber attack on the mobile phone company and banks, infrastructure partly destroyed. Ukraine's largest mobile phone company operator, Kyivstar, has denounced an act of war. Wow, after 2 years, Ukraine realizes that Russia's kicking their butt in a war. Can you believe that? Says by Russia after a major cyber attack today paralyzed its network and partially destroyed its IT infrastructure. This is a war which is being waged not only on the battlefield, but also in the world of virtual networks, and unfortunately, we have been affected by this war. This was coming from the Kyivstar Group CEO speaking to Ukrainian state television. And guys, Russia looks like they're on top of the cyber warfare as well as some of the space stuff there, the satellites. Again, who was it, Reagan, that mentioned Star Wars? Or I can't remember, some president was talking about this. Said the attack caused severe damage to the IT infrastructure, limited access. We could not counter it at the level of virtual networks, so we disrupted Kyivstar services to limit the enemy's access. This morning, we were the target of a major hacker attack. It caused a technical failure that made mobile phone services and internet access temporarily unavailable. The company said it will take a long time to restore the infrastructure since the consequences of the attack are impressive. Kyivstar's network has more than 24 million subscribers. The outage affected a number of services across the country. In Sumy, in the northeast, air raid warning sirens stopped working, the military administration of this city announced on Telegram. In Lviv, western Ukraine, the outage affected the operation of the public lighting system, according to the city council. Guys, total cyber warfare. Strong hacker attacks hit Ukrainian Vodafone, Monobank, Private Bank, and Oshad Bank. In addition to the mobile phone companies, including the Private Bank and Oshad, Ukraine's largest bank, Private Bank, said some of the ATMs and terminals were affected by the cyber attack, according to public television websites. Think about that. You're not going to watch Netflix, and that's the least of your problems, but your bank's not working right now. They cannot see what Russia's doing. Not, Ukraine can't, NATO can, and most of the stuff that's happening in Ukraine is not really Ukraine. It's coming from outside sources. It says, while private banks said it had dealt with the consequences of the attack, the second credit institution was less fortunate. Some of its terminals are not working, and there are difficulties with transferring funds. Again, Vodafone and Monobank collapsed in Ukraine. The companies are talking about strong hacker attacks. The Vodafone app is not working. A window labeled technical errors opens. One of the major Ukrainian banks, Monobank, said it was the target of a massive DDoS, which is a distributed denial of service attack. Guys, in a group called CyberNo on Twitter is saying that Kiev Star is under cyber attack and has been for several hours. Vodafone Ukraine is also under cyber attack. Monobank, LifeSail is suffering a cyber attack. Not sure what that is. No hacktivist group is currently claiming any of these attacks. Also, guys, coming in yesterday, white towel from the U.S. and Germany. Ukrainian army completely destroyed. Spring 2025 next counterattack. Kiev to negotiate. Now, first of all, there will not be a 2024 counterattack, not from Ukraine, much less a 2025. This is the mental fog of war that NATO has. Germany and the U.S. have decided to reduce military aid to Kiev. Everybody except Biden. I don't know why they're saying the U.S. Biden has, another $180 billion or something like that. He just went ahead and passed it real quick without approval being sent there. And they're finding out that it's not really going to Ukraine. They're sending it to the industrial military complex to build stuff to go wherever. But the money's not going straight to Ukraine. The people that have stock in the industrial complex are getting very wealthy. We call it blood money on a massive scale. The U.S. and Germany have decided to pressure Ukraine to capitulate with Russia, and that is why they are constantly reducing military aid. German media broadcast speaking of a secret Biden-Schultz, who's Germany, plan aimed at ending the war. What they think in their mental capacity is that they can stop the war right now, and Ukraine will end up with a little over a third, not quite half of its country, so that NATO and the U.S. will still have a playground there to do their deeds. That's what they think they can do. They think that Russia is going to stop. Russia's not going to stop. They've already said, remember the video I did a few days ago about they were going to put a referendum or vote into Ukraine to see if they wanted to join back to Russia. And they already have Ukrainian troops, which are Russian, laying down their weapons, moving to the Russian side, being immediately enlisted in the army, fully armed, and being prepared. I don't know how much more is going to be needed in Ukraine. It would depend on NATO interference. But Ukraine is in full retreat. Now look at Kiev. They're in the dark, and they've been getting hit with hypersonic missiles also. According to the Wall Street Journal, and if I'm not mistaken, guys, they are almost in full bankruptcy. The strategy of the West has changed as the Ukrainian army has suffered an unprecedented disaster, due to which it will not be able to launch a new counterattack before the spring of 2025. Guys, that is so funny, especially when I read you what Putin's saying about this. I mean, it's just delusional. I don't know what kind of game they think they're playing, but Russia's had enough. A new secret plan for Ukraine. This is the title of an article by the military political analyst of the German newspaper Bild. According to Bild, the U.S. and Germany intend to force Zelensky to negotiate with Russia. It's not going to be up to anyone but Russia. Quote, Zelensky himself must understand that this cannot continue. No external prompts. He must willingly go to his people and explain to them that negotiations are necessary. This is from a representative of the German government. The very measure or the very meaning of the secret plan is that Germany and the U.S. plan to supply Kiev with exactly those weapons and exactly in those quantities with which the Ukrainian army will be able to hold the current front. It hasn't worked so far. Every American, German tank has been destroyed. Everyone that's went to the battlefield. U.S. and Germany will continue to give weapons to Ukraine, but now very limited, so that it will be forced to negotiate. And from the German government circles, it says that the current aim of Ukraine's Western allies is to put in a strategically advantageous negotiating position. In other words, stop the war now, Putin. Just stop it right here. We're going to split it up. In other words, Ukraine will be called maybe Western Ukraine, they're hoping for, so that they can again continue with their playground, continue to approach and encroach towards the Russian border, because Russia is not part of the New World Order, and the New World Order is furious. They're throwing everything they've got in here. And so what is happening? Russia, again, has military superiority, both in the physical and the cyberspace. Also from yesterday, guys, I'm going backwards, I understand that, but I wanted to put that cyber attack information there, satellites having problems in networks. But here, from yesterday, dramatic developments. Dozens of areas come under Russian control. Extensive retreat of Ukrainian forces along the entire front line. And there's a video here on this. I'm going to go to a couple more articles, but this is what's happening. Now, let's go back to an article from this morning. It says Russian army launches massive offensive operations across the front line, heavy Ukrainian losses. Now, think about it. They're throwing everything that's in the front lines up there. But this is nowhere near the size of the real Russian army. At the same time, they've blinded the NATO communications. But the U.S. thinks they're going to just say, okay, Putin and Zelensky, y'all stop right there, and we're going to draw a border. And Putin's reply to the U.S. and NATO, it says, atmosphere of impending doom in Kiev. This was yesterday before the cyber attacks. The worst is yet to come. That was what's happened today. No negotiations. We are stronger than ever. Ukrainians are looking for soldiers, now using Leopards as AK guns. Artillery, instead of having the tanks pull in there and fight directly, they're having to back them off and shoot at the incoming enemy as if they're artillery weapons. And remember, Putin's going to push through. He's going to take Ukraine. There's going to be some damage done on both sides, but he's going to let the Ukrainians that remain vote. Do you want to become Russian citizens, or you want to go back to these losers in Kiev that have destroyed your families? They've forced your old men, your children, your women into the battle to become a part of the meat grinder that NATO is pushing, along with the U.S., to try to encroach into Russia. Again, such a heavy blood loss. This is what I was talking about also. Strong Russian attack on Kiev. Hypersonic Kh-47 M2 Kinjal hit Patriot. Second wave with ballistic Iskanders and the Duran 2 drones. In other words, the Kinjal hit the Patriot missile systems that the U.S. sold to Ukraine. Start of the Russian operation is to destroy the energy grid. This was from yesterday, and you're seeing what has happened now with the cyber attacks. And imagine hypersonic missiles. You can't stop them. They destroy everything that they hit. And just a reminder, going back to the 8th, of what Putin said then, this is what I was talking about, the referendum. Nuclear bomb from Russia. We will decide with the referendum the annexation of the whole of Ukraine, not half. Will the new Russian army continue the war? The new Russian army are the Ukrainian military people that realized that they were getting destroyed for nothing, without supplies, being crushed into the front lines. And that's the ones that are now joining Russia. The new Russian army continue the war. Will they completely wipe Ukraine off the map? Yes. I think they will. There will be major conflicts before they get much further than that. But I think Russia is prepared this time to move as far west as necessary. They said they did not mess with the other European satellites and banks yet. They're being very patient, sitting there with 2 years now into the war, maybe more than that, and let NATO and the U.S. throw everything they had, deplete all of the other nations' resources and money and troops into a bloodbath. That's what's been happening. And Russia set back. They'll have minor incursions here and there, throw a few rockets in. And at that time, what they're doing is destroying thousands of troops. And you've seen in the videos for the last couple of years, tons of munitions, tanks, everything. They control the air. So the referendum will be, as soon as they take Kiev out of the way, which they've just blinded them, they're going to put this referendum through. But they're going to push all the way to the borders. Why are they doing it like this? They're concentrating men. Why? Because remember Kaliningrad, through the Suwalki corridor. NATO has ships up there that are trying to blockade Russia's port. Russia's not going to stop till it gets to Kaliningrad. But remember that Belarus which is the nation that they would go through to get to the Suwalki corridor, is on Russia's side. They've got a lot of Wagner troops there. But guys, I've got another update coming in from the Middle East. I will get it up this afternoon. I'm not quite sure. It's very telling also. It shows something that may be the very cause of the mass exodus of Gaza caused by the Israeli military starting back on October 7th. But there may be something underlining that they're not talking about, and we're going to talk about it this afternoon. But we're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.